Hello lovely people! Today I'm going to talk more about sourdough. Why am I doing this video today? Because, see, during MCO and because of MCO, right up to last week, I did not bake because I had trouble finding the particular organic rye flour that I was using to feed my starter. So my starter was basically starving. But no, it doesn't die. So which brings me today to today's video, because the information out there on sourdough and the sourdough fan club or following, it can be a bit too much, and honestly it's not as complicated as it seems. Imagine this: what actually is sourdough? It's the first type of bread, apparently it's the first type of bread ever made by men. Well, maybe not the first type, but that's how they used to make it before there was instant yeast and all these bread makers. So it's basically going back to basics and natural way of making bread. So let's start with number one. If your starter looks dead but doesn't smell dead, it's probably not dead. What you do is discard some and continue feeding it, and maybe feed it twice a day till it starts to come back alive. It just needs more food, okay? And then number two, what happens if you see a layer of like liquid on top? Just chuck the layer of liquid and continue feeding. There is another school of thought which I tried and it also works. You don't really have to chuck the liquid, just stir it in, continue feeding. Okay, the other thing that I want to debunk about this whole sourdough movement is, now, because I have things here, that's why I keep looking here. It says you need a Banneton to proof your bread. So what is a Banneton? They sell it online. It's inexpensive, but what happens when lorry just has to pass by? So it's a bit noisy. What happens if you don't have one? Now, so I don't have one. I don't use a proper Banneton, but what I do use is, and why don't you use the proper ones, Ivy? Well, because I like to DIY. I like to recycle. I like to use things, you know, to its maximum potential, and I really try not to buy things until I have no choice. Okay, so back to the Banneton. Ayo, do they have to do that now? Bear with me. It's good tips, you're gonna need it. Okay, so I use this basket. You know, the simple bread basket. You can use anything really. You can use a bowl. You can use, I mean, I'm using this as an ashtray. I don't say that you use it, but you can use anything that can hold the dough. And what you do with it is, what makes this a Banneton is the cloth inside. So again, the cloth can be anything. So here's a face towel. Yeah. Now what can you see? Let me put this down like that. Okay. What you do once you find your basket, bowl, not vase, basket or bowl, I guess. Any size, it's up to you. You put your cloth, and your cloth can be something as simple as this. I'm being gentle because it's got a bit of flour in it. Yeah. This, it can be not an old diaper, but one that was never used and I use for baking. Yep, flour's flying all over. It can be a tea towel. Whew, flour flying all over. Tea towel, anything. So what do you want to do? Let's say you use a tea towel. You've got your basket. Again, any basket or bowl. You want to place, can you guys see? Okay, you want to place the tea towel straight like that, flat. And then you're going to flour the surface with rice flour. Yeah. So while baking, you bake with whatever flour you want your sourdough to be. All-purpose flour, bread flour, rye flour, spelt flour, up to you. When it comes to this point, you put rice flour. It will not change the flavor of your bread, but what it will do is prevent it from sticking to the cloth. And put a lot of it, a lot of it. One tool that I just only yesterday started using, and I highly recommend everyone buys one, and they don't tell you this on other videos, I don't know why, is a paintbrush. A clean paintbrush, maybe about this big, yeah, not too big. Why do you need a paintbrush? I'll tell you why. So, lots of flour, right? You put your dough in, and the dough goes like that. Okay, and once it goes in, you put a little bit more flour and you cover your baby up. Now when it's time to take it out, you unfold this, take the basket, and whatever you're going to bake it in, that be your Dutch oven, which I'll come to later after this. If you don't have a Dutch oven, what do? So take this, put it, let's assume you have a Dutch oven. Take this, you want to put it into your Dutch oven or the tray, because the next step after this is scoring the bread. You have to score the bread. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be scored. Why? If you don't score your bread, or rather why we score the bread is to tame the explosion, because it's going to go right, and you want it to go nicely. So again, this one, and you go boop, like that. Oh, all the flour. So then once the, see, flour, once the bread is on that thing that you want to bake it in, you take that brush, that new clean brush, paintbrush, and you just brush off the excess flour, because you don't want like chunks of flour on top. Helpful tip? Okay. Now, so you don't need to buy a Benetton. You don't need to go, oh no, I want to bake, but then I don't have this, and going to the shop, and where do I find a Benetton? Order on Lazada. Just find any basket, any towel, clean one. Even an old t-shirt will work. That's right, people. It's not as crazy as it sounds. I know some sourdough fanatics are like, oh, but you can't. I'm like, yeah, I can. I mean, you think back in the days they had Lazada or they had IKEA and they had all those Benetton mass-produced baskets? No, they didn't. Okay, so to bake a sourdough, you must have a Dutch oven. What is a Dutch oven? Fundamentally, it is a pot that has a lid. Yeah, and okay, bye-bye, stop making noise. And most professionals, or we see in the videos, they use the, what do you call that? Not cast iron. See, I don't remember, but it's like some fancy, expensive pot. What happens if you don't have that? You can use something like, are you ready to see this? Ta-da! Okay, now, what do we have here? This is a simple baking tray. Okay? This is, you know, wok cover. Yeah, it's all burned inside because from baking. I have used this since the day I started baking, because I didn't have a Dutch oven, right? And till today I still use it, and no, I'm not throwing it away. And yes, it's clean, it's just well used. I love you. Okay. So you need this, and you need something to cover it. And that's really what a Dutch oven does, is to it holds the steam inside, and that gives the bread its spring and all that. You can also use a pot with a lid, like I say, but make sure that it is heat proof, so you can put it in the oven and it won't melt, like no plasticky and all that. Okay, so just say you use something like this. You have to put this in the oven when you're preheating the oven, right? And I suggest you do that. You put this in the oven, turn the oven on, preheat it. When you start to put your dough in your man-made, recycled, DIY Benetton. See, even this can be a Benetton. You know, put anything that holds a bread and a piece of cloth. That's all you need. Okay, so once you put this in the oven and you're ready to bake, dough has been rising in the Benetton, you've taken it out, you've scored it to how you like it, with gloves, of course. Take this out, dough on here, quickly cover it in the oven, and then you bake it for what I do is that for 25, I'm going to move this way, for about 25 minutes on about 200 degrees, 220. And then you remove the lid after 20 minutes and continue baking for another 15 minutes without the lid to give that brown color. When the time is up, how do you check if your bread is ready? You flip it over. First of all, you can see by the color. If it's still a bit pale brown, you know what I do, which again, they don't tell you this in other videos. Flip it around and bake the other side of it for about 20 minutes. Until you go, and there's like a real thump sound, then your bread is ready. Once your bread is ready, you take it out. You have to put it on a rack, not a flat surface. It's got to be something with holes so the heat can escape without making the bread. The heat can escape while maintaining the crisp on the crust. Yes. And do not eat the bread for at least 2 hours. At least don't cut into it. It needs to kind of cool down and finish its cooking inside. So there we go. Myths on sourdough baking debunked. You do not need any fancy thing. In fact, I think it is one of the easiest breads to bake. Seriously. The hardest part is the starter. Growing and maintaining the starter, that's the hard part. Once you got that covered, you're good to go. It's really easy. In fact, you don't even need to knead it. It's like you just flip it full. So maybe I'll do another video on that. If you need a video on how to make sourdough the Ivy way, let me know. Okay? So happy baking!